We'll do something interesting today. Like
Okay.
what I'll do is I'll ask you a bunch of questions and then let the viewers guess first what you do, and
Okay.
then we'll have your introduction.
Okay.
So, do you think AI can take your job?
Certain aspects of the job, yes.
Okay. Like what?
There was a lot of thought that went behind communication, and some of that has become far easier with AI. It seems to be able to read what you want to say and seems to be able to intuitive in that sphere. So, one of the key skills in the past, which was written communication, it certainly is that out a lot.
Yeah.
So I feel that it will sort of move more in that direction. Then, of course, there are other things around analysis of data.
Right.
Which earlier used to take a long time because you would open up Excel, you would find various tools across the net to visualize it, to analyze it, and now it happens within a matter of minutes, and then you can, on top of that, add your own story. But it certainly made some of those things much quicker, faster, and far more intuitive sometimes. So some of the signs you may miss, it gives you those cues. So,
Right.
yeah, certain aspects, I definitely think. What it also will do is make it much faster, and give you a little more time to do the things that are really important. So I don't think it can take it away, but I do think it can make it much more efficient than it is today.
Okay. So basically, communication and analytics part might go to AI, but rest of it will stay with you.
Yeah.
So, what are some aspects it can never take away then?
I think the emotional intelligence, the ability to connect to people one on one, because ultimately, whatever people buy and whatever people, the reason people work with you or they like to become your customers is because of what you bring to the table.
Right.
And so I don't think AI will ever be able to replace the human touch.
Right.
So that uh, hopefully will still be our domain and our
Okay. And
expertise.
anything apart from that?
Apart from that, I think uh, the basic human need of connecting with each other is quite key to people working together and doing business together, and in all aspects of our social and work life. So I think those that human to human connection is very, very key to success of any
Right.
piece of work, and I don't think that AI can take away either.
Okay, so as of now, what I'm seeing is basically people at the C level, they won't get easily replaced because strategy, communication, like you said, is crucial. So it's starting from the bottom, I believe. AI is starting to replace certain roles. Like I heard recently that IBM has replaced 80% of their HR employees. Like the basic things like vacations, leaves, and all. So that
Right.
is done by AI now. So, what is from a C-level employee's point of view? Are they like very in a hurry to replace AI with these kind of employees, or are they taking it slow? How is the emotion right now in the market?
Any business will always look for efficiencies, right?
Yeah.
And if there is a straight case where you can bring in an efficiency into the business and use the human potential for more complex tasks, then I think it's a no-brainer. So it's not about replacing people, it's about changing the nature of what they do for you, and people will always adapt to what is required of them. Today, if I hire a starting level employee and all he has to do is update sheets or enter data, etc., right? Now, if that is easily replaceable by a tool, then of course you would do it. So it's like saying that Excel replaced paper.
Yeah.
So of course we used to have square papered books when we started working, and you would do your calculations there. And today it takes seconds comparatively. So there's no need for the calculators. You have your Excel open, you can do any mathematical calculation very quickly. So it didn't replace the people. It just made people experts at Excel versus people doing very quick calculations on a calculator or writing them down. So I think AI also has a similar role. It is two steps ahead of what we have ever thought of in the past, possibly. But then there's no end to human imagination. So imagination is one thing. Right now, at least, AI is not replacing. There are signs of it, but that's something which you will always need. So I think from a C-level perspective, any repetitive task which can be done more efficiently and quickly through the use of the latest technology will certainly be replaced. But that is not to say that the human beings will be replaced, because they will add more value to that process at a different level. That's how I view it.
Great. Okay. So one more thing before we get actually into it. If you were to start from your role from the bottom, what would you do differently considering there is AI and everything?
If I were to sort of reevaluate at this stage, knowing that there is AI, then yes, I will look for repetitive tasks. I will look for where we can bring in efficiencies. I will look for processes where um, standard communication has to be done. So a little while back, the call centers came into play. Yeah, suddenly you could consolidate them in one place and you would get efficiencies, because you could move a call coming in one country to another country without any problem, and you did that. So it's the same with the AI operations as well. So whether it is analytics, whether it is preparation of data sheets, whether it is managing your HR functions, for example, and so many other financial sort of pieces that we do, which you have to make every month, you have to do every month. So those are the kind of efficiencies that I would first identify to be made more efficient through the use of AI. And if it saves you time and effort, then you can certainly bring more value to those tasks. So that's how I would rethink processes.
Okay. Okay. Now let's start this podcast. Quick intro about what you do.
Okay, so I currently work with as SVP of customer success with all the global clients for a SaaS-based IT startup out of India called RateGain. We operate, in the travel technology space worldwide, and we are one of the top companies in this space. That's what I do currently. But my background is travel. I worked with British Airways for 21 years. That was where I started my career. And then I took a break after a long career of 21 years. And now I've been in the SaaS space for over 12 years. So, that's pretty much the long and short of it. I have primarily been in customer facing roles through my entire career. And I continue to do that here as well.
Okay, so when you said you're working in travel for a long time, a typical question or in a viewers might come that you might have traveled a lot. So did you get to travel a lot, or you saw others traveling more?
So as I like to say, yes, I think travel was somewhere written for me. So I don't know whether it is some AI at the top, but at the end of the day, my father was in the army. I come from an army background, so I had the pleasure of traveling all over India through my childhood, and then thankfully I got into a profession which was in travel again. I worked for an airline for 21 years, so yes, I've had the good luck and the good fortune to travel to many parts around the world. And I'm grateful for that every day, and I continue to do that. So that is a big hobby of mine. And yes, if you are in the travel profession, it does mean that you end up traveling a lot, and that's one part of what I do, which I really love.
Right. Okay, so you worked for almost 2 decades in the airline company, and then you moved to a sort of a SVP position. So how was this transition like?
As far as the airline is concerned, I started out at a rock bottom job, something which was at that point um, we were matching APIs. That's what we used to do, and it was a repetitive process. Yeah. So we had a bunch of 350 API related messages which we had to sort of match every day, and that was the target that we were given. So I started there, but the company's culture was such that they would pick people who had potential and who wanted to grow within the company for higher roles. So I moved through those 21 years. I just didn't do one job. I moved through many roles, and my last role was setting up the contact center for British Airways. It's a captive contact center which they set up here in India. So I set it up, and then I grew it, brought in the calls and processes from many countries, amalgamated it together. And it was after that that I took a break. And so then, yes, when I joined my current company, I joined at a senior position where again customer success was my main KPI. So renewals and farming accounts for the business. So yeah, that had been a large part of my previous experience as well. And so it was a good transition. It completely broadened my horizon in terms of you know my learning thus far. And but the basics always remained the same when it came to handling customers, when it came to handling business. I think the basics I learned well in my first 2 decades of working, and I used all of those learnings and learned more in my current role.
Okay, so you mentioned about handling customers and previously communication. So in your current company, how do you maintain this alignment between customer success, sales, and the product team?
That's an interesting question, actually, because these are three pillars of the business that firstly conceptualize something that identifies a need in the niche business that you work in. So the product people will conceptualize, they will visualize from the point of view of creating a product, and creating a product which can ultimately be monetized. And that's where the expertise lies, because they will be able to not only put out a product in the market which will add value to the customer, but you can monetize it for the company that you make it for. And so that's why the product people are the dreamers. They can actually create something which is of value. The sales guys also then go ahead and sort of spread that dream amongst potential users, buyers. Um, and they have a difficult job going hunting for people who would then buy into the ideas that the product people have thought of and executed, um, which again is a lot of the heavy lifting. um, However, once you have a product, and when you have a customer who's willing to buy that product, then comes one of the most difficult tasks, and that's to make that dream come true, right? And that journey is what we call customer success. So you implement for the customer, you make sure that the customer sees the value of what you have brought to the table. And not only do they see the value for a short time, but they continue to see long term value for that product. But what is also a very key part of customer success is to evolve with the needs of the customer, and to bring that evolutionary journey back into the product teams and back into the sales teams, to try and see what more can you do with this product. Change is really, underpins all good businesses. Right. So to be able to identify when change is happening, to be able to identify and adapt your products and your business to that change, and be able to continue to bring value. That is what is the job of customer success. And I think, again, communication plays a very key role, because to be able to bring all the internal and external stakeholders together to make that journey successful for the long term, that is the role of customer success largely.
Yeah, and if you have to say, like, this is when things go smoothly, and when they don't, what are the most common points where misunderstanding occurs between the teams?
So yes, there is managing expectations is a word which is used very often. It's the lexicon of anybody who's in customer success. And so you everybody perceives what you tell them during the sales process and during a product demonstration, in terms of how they think it will solve their problems. The reality sometimes can be quite different from that, and the reality sometimes can take longer to gestate than what they first think. So sometimes they think that they've spent the money, they've bought in some new technology, and overnight it will start changing their business. So to be able to manage that whole journey, to set expectations correctly, to not over promise what the product is going to do to you, but also to show them how the future will look like after they have properly integrated whatever new technology or product they are buying. that is where I think the customer success expertise comes in. And yes, things go wrong when it's technology or when it's any other product. Things will go wrong. You have to expect it, you have to prepare for it, and you have to make sure you align the customer's expectations to that as well. I think what is very important is when things go wrong, what is your response like? How responsive are you? How quickly are you able to understand and you're able to solve? Or how quickly are you able to offer alternatives? So some of that will underpin whether a customer journey will be successful or it will be unsuccessful. And you have to be prepared for both eventualities, but you have to prepare. So I think the most important thing when you go into a customer success journey with a client is to make sure that you prepare. So that is one thing where you must spend the time, understand the business, understand how you fit in, understand where you can bring value. And the more you prepare for it, the more you communicate, and the more clearly you communicate, both written, verbal, and through every method that is possible. That will define whether you'll be successful or unsuccessful.
Right. So you mentioned like there are always like mistakes happen a lot. So can you tell us one of the scenarios where there was a failed system or a failed process, and how did you revamp it?
So many examples I can kind of pull in, but mainly around the fact that we were expecting to deliver something. It was supposed to go by a particular time, and for one reason or the other, things didn't work as expected, and it didn't reach on the time that it needed to. Now, when the customer speaks to the customer success person, he will say, "Look, I set expectations. I told you I needed by this time. How come this wasn't done? You knew very well what you had to do, and you knew very well what by what time we needed it." So that is something which is a continuous challenge, to be able to explain to them how we had prepared for it, and did we cater for every possible eventuality that could have gone wrong? Yes, we did. So talk them through those steps. Now, if you've done that right to begin with, you are able to handle the customer better, because you can show them all of the steps that you took to make sure that something wouldn't go wrong. However, no matter what you do, sometimes there are unexpected things that will come through, and then what do you do to mitigate it? Every instance I can think of where things have gone wrong, we've always had a plan B. Okay, this site is not working. We have an alternate which we have set up for you, so we may not be able to give you this, but we'll give you this. Sometimes, yes, things go very wrong, and you decide to call it quits on either side. That happens too in business, and it's always good to be able to identify when that is imminent and be able to take that decision as well. So, good business acumen also includes understanding when to go forward and when not to.
Okay.
So, to be able to say no.
Right. So, and since we are at this topic, let's talk about what are some common mistakes that leaders make as well.
So, not particularly from a customer success perspective, but in my sort of long career with British Airways, one of the things that we were taught very well was how to prepare for change, particularly when you change from normal work to leadership or supervisory roles. And there were some basics that they teach you, and that's something I still carry with me, and that's something that I try and sort of coach my teams on also. When you're in business, you're here to do a job. You're not here to be popular. It's very easy to go down the route of being popular. Because it's very difficult to sometimes take hard decisions when they may not be popular with the general public or with people who report to you. So to be able to focus on the work and to be able to focus on outcomes and be able to take hard decisions, say no when you need to, and be able to focus on expanding the business versus just getting popular. I think so that's one of the things that has been my learning, and that's something that I try and inculcate in people around me as well. So that is what I would sort of say would be the key thing that people need to be mindful of when they get into leadership positions. It is not always a very friendly place to be in. You will have to take decisions which are good for the business, sometimes not so good for the people around you. But you don't shy away from that. And I think the typical example that I always think back to is, Krishna talking to Arjun when they were going into the war in Kurukshetra, and he said, "This is your duty. You do it because it's your duty." And so I think for leaders of the future, that is what I would say. Anybody who's getting into leadership positions, it's a difficult place to be in. Prepare for it, and focus on the business, and that's what will get you success. But besides that, it will also get you respect.
Right.
And it's very, very important to be respected in those positions, to have people follow you as leaders. So, your ability to hold your stance and to be able to execute successfully gets you respect and alignment from people below you as
Wonderful. So let's talk about your role more. So
well.
can we once just say, suppose in an MNC,
Mhm.
how does like the whole sales cycle works from start to an end? Like we can talk a little bit about pre-sales and then move on to customer success in detail.
So, with the connected world that we now have and a lot of online tools, there are many ways of identifying, the broader funnel and how do you start getting people into the funnel. So, there's social media, there is, LinkedIn and all of the other parts of
Yeah.
it, navigators. So, there's a lot of tools out there which you can engage with and actually try and understand who your audience is. There are even sort of larger tools within the ecosystem now, where people will look at blogs, they will look at podcasts, they will look at other such learning material and actually get to know about your business. So that's really how far and wide can you spread that funnel where people kind of get drawn into it. So that really is the initial process, handled by marketing, digital and social media teams, etc., within companies. Once you have an engaged audience, then the pre-sales cycle is more about identifying those opportunities, getting in touch with people, trying to establish that one-on-one contact, and being able to showcase, whatever you have to add value to their business. So that's how the pre-sales works. But after that, once the sales process starts, it is about and sales cycle in some products can be long, in some products can be short. Typically, the products that I work with, sometimes the sales cycle can be quite long. So, it takes anywhere from 3 to 6 months to nurture a customer and to be able to explain how, value gets added into their process. And sometimes it also entails doing long, successful or unsuccessful, proof of concept uh, setups as well, where you could prove that the product is working for you before they actually take a decision to buy. So it can be a long process, and hence the association with the customer, the communication with the customer, the engagement has to be top notch. And then once that process is over, it makes it even more important for the customer success process to also then be able to emulate that engagement, for the future business that you do with them. So that is how the cycle works in the current uh, arena that I work in.
Right.
So, of course, in my earlier business, it was a far shorter cycle, and it was very much more marketing led. Here, it is very much more sales led.
So you mentioned a typical sales cycle in certain products can get to 3 to 6 months. So what would you say certain maybe process or what can be changed maybe in the overall industry that would help in decreasing this time?
Uh,
Or does it take that much time to nurture the customers?
so yeah, we work on a lot of mechanisms to try and decrease that time. So there are a lot of things that you can do. That there is a lot of very successful SaaSification of products, as we call it, right? So you can have freemiums. You have freemium models where somebody can come in, they can log in, use your product for a while, get the feel of it, and then decide whether they want to go for a premium paid model. So that works very well. That's a freemium model. There are also freeware models where you come in, you can sign up and use a certain portion of that product for free. Um, and once you've done that, you automatically then move on to a paid version of the product. And that is a very popular method within the technology field now to shorten that cycle. Because once people experience the product, they find that it's useful. They will, influence people around them to actually pay for it and buy it. And that's called sort of, product led growth, where the product itself becomes its own marketing tool. So there are a lot of such tools which companies use, um, to be able to shorten that sales cycle. So these are just some ideas, but there are a variety of them.
Okay, so we talked about sales. Let's come to retention now. Do you think sales is harder or retention is harder?
Yeah, well, that's the quintessential question. So, is the hunter working harder or is the farmer working harder? Well, I don't think you can really compare the effort, because they're totally different kinds of effort. They're led by, by different personalities largely. So the seller is somebody who's motivated by, communicating with people, talking to new people, making sure that he brings in the money and he brings in the moolah. Whereas the farmer is more like a nurturer. We are talking today on Mother's Day, and who better to nurture something than a mother? So a farmer is more like that. They are willing to put in the hard work. They will put in the soil, the manure. They will dig. They will water, and they will wait for the shoots to sprout. And then the moment those shoots sprout, they will then make sure that they harvest it and they reap what they have sown. So that is the difference. Both require a lot of hard work. Both just have very different methodologies through which they are executed. One requires patience and nurturing. The other one requires hunting, where you go after something. And so more of an adrenaline rush and probably more of a oxytocin rush when it comes. So I think that's the primary difference between the two. But yes, I won't say that any one of them is less, involves less work.
Yeah, that's very well explained actually. So, and what can you mention some bunch of retention strategies that work for you?
So I think, I've said this word so many times, and I'm at the risk of repeating myself. I'm going to say it again, and that's communication, right? So it is very important for you to effectively communicate with your customer. They must at all times be able to see the effort that you're putting in. They must at all times be able to see what you're doing for them. And it's very important for you to also understand what they need done, and you have to be able to marry the two. You have to be able to explain what the product can do for them and how that's fitting into their business. So what's in it for me becomes very important. The more occasions and the more structured you can make that aspect, the better your chances at retention. So regular cadences, whether it's weekly cadences depending on what product it is, or regular monthly cadences, uh, a regular, quarterly business review where you look at their business, you look at your business, you understand what value you have added and what value you can add for the future, understand their future plans, whiteboard with them. Then, customer advisory boards where you bring your customer in and get their feedback, um, thought leadership ideas on what you are doing and how you're moving to next gen technology through AI and AI powered tools, increase their learning. So all of those strategies where they engage with you makes it, uh, easier to then retain them, because then you create a certain synergy between your business and their business, and you become an integral part of their business. So you work as partners versus working as just two businesses that have a sort of monetary relationship. So I think it's very important to build that synergy. Having said that, it is not always easy because everyone has a day job. The person who's the customer success person has more than one account that they're looking at. The person who you're working with within the company has 50 other things to do besides only engage with you. So to be able to find those nuggets which will get them to engage with you um, on the aspects of the business which are important to them, and how you can make their life easier. The more you communicate, the more you find those nuggets, and the more you add to your playbook in terms of how you better retention. So these are just some basic tools where retention is related to communication and the value they perceive that you're bringing to their business, and that continued value that you keep bringing to their business.
I think continued value is the keyword
Yes,
here.
absolutely.
And can you name an instance where a major escalation happened and how you made them stay? Obviously, communication would have played a big role, but if there's an example.
Yes. So, I'm not going to go into a specific example. When I talk about engagement, I don't think it's a one-person job. You know, I think it is very important to have feedback from your customers. So, at all points, you have to have a feedback mechanism. So, there are two sides to having a relationship with the customer. One side is that when you have a very good relationship, sometimes they're not very comfortable telling you when things are not good, right? Because you have a relationship where you're talking to them every week, you have this communication going with them, you think you know your customer very well, and you think he's happy with what you're giving them. But is that how he is thinking? And is he really being transparent with you when it comes to how he's feeling about your products or your services or your style of delivery or any of those? So I think it's very important to create a multi-layered, engagement within uh, the customer account, and that sometimes brings to fore some of those things which maybe at the junior most engagement level you may not find. So it's quite important for you to have a feedback mechanism, like for example NPS or a survey, etc., where the person can write feedback back. Then it is very important to respond on that feedback, not just through the level of the person who's directly engaging, but also one level above and a couple of levels above. Plus, you create at least a 3-layer or a multi-layer engagement strategy where, if I'm connected to somebody in the organization, the person, my boss, and, people above them, right to the top, are connected to people within that organization. So if there is any sort of change, or if there's any dissatisfaction, at a strategic level, or if there are any changes expected at a strategic level, you can sort of get that information well in time and be able to mitigate the impact of that. So that really is a very, very important, strategy when it comes to the retention of customers.
Got it. So, considering another aspect to it, like, and given your global career, how do you navigate cultural nuances in leadership and communication?
That's again a very good question. And, we've become so globalized now that you could be sitting here and you could be talking to people in all time zones across the world. And everybody has now become sensitive to the fact that it's my night and it's your day and whatever, but they work around that to collaborate, right? But yes, people think differently, people perceive differently depending on what kind of a culture they've been brought up with. So, in India, we are very famous for the Jugaad technology, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes global customers don't always understand that. They like structure, they like, things to happen in a particular way. They're very conscious of time. So, these are nuances that you need to understand. There is a lot of training that one can fall back to for this. So, in the early part of my career, some of the key things that we were taught were around uh, how do you handle these cultural differences? Because in a global airline, you could have anybody coming to you at the counter and they have to be handled. People spoke different languages, they had to be handled, right? So you could have a plane full of 10 different nationalities, sitting on an aircraft. Their food habits are different, their expectations are different. So they actually train you to be able to handle cultures, Southeast Asian versus European versus American. And over time, of course, I have learned uh, to be mindful of people's communication styles. So I try and pick those, on the first interaction, and also, be culturally aware of being very direct in your communication, especially when things are not going to be done in a particular way. It's better to let them know in advance, especially in the Western cultures, that this can happen and this cannot happen, but these are the alternatives that we can offer you, right? So those are the kind of conversations that help bridge that gap. What also helps bridge that gap in this age of communication is things which are happening, which give you common topics to discuss. So, for example, when I first started as a customer success manager, I put Google alerts for the companies that I was working for. It was just a simple thing. I just put Google alerts, and that would give me information on what's happening, their latest report that got published. They collaborated or partnered with somebody, something different happened. So every time I went on a call, I was nicely armed with some very interesting topics to start the conversation and warm up and break the ice.
Yeah.
And that really helped establish that one-on-one relationship, which then translated into a more effective business relationship. So I think those are the tips, tools, and techniques you can use to actually, bridge that global difference. I mean, it could be a game of soccer that you could discuss.
Yeah.
It could be a game of football that you could discuss. It could be a common sport that you could discuss. So anything that breaks the ice and brings you to a level where people feel comfortable talking to each other. I think that's the key.
Great. And like we've often seen in certain shows or heard as well, ki a lot of deals happen on a golf course or somewhere like this. What have worked for you most in terms of these kind of activities?
Well, they do. So, like I said, at the end of the day, that's exactly what I said that AI can't replace, right?
Yeah.
It's the one-on-one, people-to-people connection. So, in fact, at our company, they really believe in going out there and meeting the customer and actually bringing in the business, and that's worked very well for them, over the years. So, the one-on-one connection is very important. If people can trust you, if they feel that you will be effective, they will definitely feel more sort of confident in offering you their business. So yes, it can happen over as something as simple as a golf course, but there would have been a lot of hard work that would have gone on in the background before you engineer that golf course meeting, right? So that doesn't get talked about. So it's not about just walking onto the golf course and just signing up a deal. No, it is not. There's a lot of preparation that goes into things before that, where all the ducks are put in a row, and then finally, yes, the decision makers, if they see everything is working well, it will not take them much time to then actually sign the dotted line. But there's a lot of preparation and hard work that goes on behind it. So it is not as easy as some people make it sound.
Definitely. Okay, so let's go a little bit back. Can you tell us what was your educational background and how did it all start?
So education, as in formal education, and education in things that you learn as you go along. Formal education, because my father was in the army, we got posted every 2 years. So I've studied in schools all over the country. And luckily, near every cantonment, there was always good schools, which I, got the opportunity to study in. So I had a very eclectic, varied sort of education in my early years. And I think the biggest thing I learned from changing school every 2 years was adaptability and change. I could go make new friends, I could go connect with people very easily. So those are some of the things that happen in the background without my even realizing. And, probably I realized many years later in my life, that was the real education. Whatever I learned from my books was important, but that really was the education in being able to make a change very quickly and being able to look ahead and, quickly adapt to new environment. So that was the early part of my education. I finished my graduation in Shillong. I did my BSc, studied botany, wanted to be a farmer. So that's how I started. But then, my father got posted to Delhi. We came here, and I thought, what do I want to do? So I got to know about a relative who worked for an airline, and I thought that sounds like an interesting, career. So let me see if I can sort of break through there. I was all of about 20 years old, and dot matrix printers had just come out then. So I printed about 100 resumes and decided to walk within Connaught Place to go and hand over my resume to every conceivable office I could find on the way. So anything that said travel outside, I went in, I asked for HR, and I handed them my resume and said, I'd like to work for your company. Would you please hire me? And so I think every company that had travel written outside it in Nehru Place and in Connaught Place had my resume at some point. And then, of course, I think I didn't realize then, but at a later stage, one of those resumes came up, and British Airways was just trying to expand this new offshore department that they were starting here, and I got a call, and so the rest is history. And now 35 years later, with a long career in travel, it was that education, and that initiative which I took to go and sort of talk to everyone and make friends with every HR in a travel company, which helped me. So I think education is more than just books. It is more about what you learn in that environment, what you learn from your peers. But I continued that journey even through my career. So luckily in British Airways, there were a lot of opportunities to learn and to develop. So right from negotiation skills to various other sort of project management, etc., courses that I could do and arm myself with. I did up to the fact that even at the right age of sort of 50, I went in for a MDP course at IIM through my current company.
Right.
So did that and did well there as well. So I think education is a continuous process.
Yeah.
You have to continue it throughout your career if you want to remain relevant and.
So what was the major skill set that you were going for with that MBA?
So it was a broader sort of skill set. I wanted to really learn about finance in terms of how companies manage their financial books, and so I had plenty of experience by then in terms of managing P&Ls, etc. But it's always good to go back to the theory of it and to understand how revenues are looked at. What is gap revenue? What is so all of those kind of concepts. Some forecasting, statistics. So it touched on all of those aspects. But I think what I found most interesting was the strategy class that we did. So we had a very, very interesting professor at IIM Lucknow called Professor Anadi Saran Pandey, who took that class for us. And as luck would have it, his wife was the person who took our, Dr. Nisha Pandey, she took our communications class. And so both of those were very, very interesting. Things that I thought I knew, and yet when you went into the classroom to learn them again, they really kind of reiterated and opened your eyes to, the business world. So it was a very, very interesting experience late in my career. But
okay. And what would be the best advice that you've got in your career?
I've luckily had very good leaders to work under, and I've learned from them. I've emulated them at every step. Some have taught me structure. Some have taught me how to present my case. Some have taught me how to use data to, make my argument more effective. Some have taught me how to get into the details of something to understand it, so that I can, represent it well, and I don't get flummoxed if I get asked detailed questions. Some of them have taught me to get my hands dirty every time when something has to be done, so that I can understand it, and I can guide and I can direct it. Yet two things stand out for me. One very early in my career, when I just joined, I was all of 20, very young, and something was going on at the workplace, and things were not going right as for me. So I turned around to my boss and I told her, I said, that's not fair. So that was my reaction to what was happening. And she very calmly just looked at me, gave me a once over and said, Rasika, who told you life's fair? And it stopped me in my tracks. I just, I stopped short and I thought about what she had said, and I suddenly realized that she's 100% right. Who said life's fair? You have to go and fight for things. You have to go and make sure that you get what you think you deserve, and no one is going to come and give it to you in a platter, and no one is going to play fair games. You have to
Yeah.
go and hustle, and the quicker you learn that, the better it is for you in terms of a career. So I think that was my first real lesson. And the next lesson I got when I set up Colby, which was a huge organization. We were going to start with a group of 30 people, and the plan was to expand to over 1,000 people in that contact center. So, and I was very good at what I did. So I was operationally very clued on. I knew what was happening. I could always talk to you about, how to get something done, etc., etc. And my then boss, who came in and could see me do all of that and get, uh, pulled into the details, turned around and told me that, Rasika, one of the things that you need to do is to be able to delegate all of this work, which is taking away your time, and to be able to rise above that and to be able to focus on strategy. Where is it that you want to go? Where you are today at 30 people, and what is going to be your strategy to get to 200 people? How are you going to manage the space, the communication, the training, and all of that? So you have to get out from the weeds and be able to, look from a lofty view or a 60,000 view, and then decide how you want to move things around to make the organization successful, and then be able to reach its new expanded
Right.
goal. So that was the second most important lesson I learned, and I think I carry both of these with me uh,
Right.
in life, in every aspect of my life, along with my career.
Yeah.
So,
So, talking about that, like what I see in initially in all the professionals is they look for they should get a certain jumps, very quickly, and they should be able to reach somewhere. But considering you've had such a long career, do you think, like, what do you advice would you like to give for them to certain things they shouldn't focus on and looking at the bigger picture? What are things that are more important?
I think, as far as I'm concerned, the only thing that is within your control is to focus on yourself, focus on your learning, focus on your abilities, focus on enhancing them, focus on learning from the environment around you, and follow people who you think have had successful journeys and see what you can learn from them. So I think if you do all of this, the path to your growth also automatically sort of carves itself out, because evolution to me is the key. So if you evolve as a person and as a professional, then the career evolution also follows that path. And of course, you have to be very smart. You have to be a hustler. You have to be opportunistic in some manner as well. So it is not about making those quick moves, but yeah, if they present you an opportunity to grow and learn and earn,
Yeah.
then yes, that's the way to go. So yeah, I have not had a very I worked for two companies largely, but I've
Right.
had many roles within those two companies. And the reason I did that is because that enhanced my ability and I grew through the ranks,
Yeah.
right? So that is how I've carved out my career. That is not to say any method is wrong or right. Whatever
Yeah.
helps you grow as a person and grow your professional abilities is what is the right path, according to me.
Okay. And which tech trend are you following these days?
Well, AI, I guess. So all the new development within the AI field, both from the large language models and how you can adapt those to business, plus all of the other trends that you have within technology and the AI space, particularly how it applies to our industry, especially the travel industry.
Right.
So those are the trends that I mostly focus on these days.
Okay. And let's end with this one final question. Since you mentioned that you're from the army background, so this is unrelated to profession now. So, given the current scenario, the India-Pakistan war going on, do you have any suggestion for the general public who's like you must have seen these kind of situations a lot.
Uh, well, uh, the only thing I can say is that we are a very, very strong democracy. Our army is sort of takes direction from our executive, and that's how it should be. I'm proud of that legacy, very, very proud of that legacy. Uh, what I would only urge the public to do is to not get swayed by rumors and by the quick social media bites that we see all over the place. We should calm down, we should relax, and we should trust the powers that be to do what is right for the country. And I'm sure they will. We have good leadership at the top. We have good leadership within the all the three commands: the army, the navy, the air force, and all of your border forces. So I'm very confident that whatever decisions they take will be good, and we'll be better off for it as a democracy. So I would just say that don't get swayed and don't get jingoistic. Keep calm
Yeah.
in times of stress.
Yeah. Yeah. So, guys, you heard her. Please stay away from the misinformation and double check your sources before trusting anything.
Absolutely.
And one more thing I just recalled, what is it with people when they are close to maybe retiring, or like what is it that they want to go back to farming? Like, is it something like something related to going back to your roots, or is it
I
like
think
what
it's
is it
got to do
exactly?
with uh, seeing the fruits of your labor
Okay.
indirectly. So it's very satisfying when you plant something, water it, and watch it grow. And
Yeah.
of course, it's a green environment. It's pollution free.
Yeah.
Go back to simple living after so many years of working, hustling, professional success, etc., etc. At the end of the day, you suddenly realize what really has value in life. You've hustled all these years and you've done it for various reasons, but you suddenly realize that good food, clean air, um, less stress, you know, is and enjoying all the fruits that this earth has to offer you is what is ultimate joy and ultimate pleasure, and nothing can be more pleasurable than that. So I think that's the reason why people start suddenly going back to their roots and focusing on what really matters. So yeah, healthy food, good air. What else could you ask for?
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you, Ayush.